Hello everyone, Aledo here from Miami. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about my life passion, my life obsession, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And I'm going to talk about what I call wrestlers Jiu-Jitsu. And you might ask, what is Ron talking about? Wrestlers Jiu-Jitsu, that's like a contradiction in terms. Well, very easy. Wrestlers Jiu-Jitsu is this methodology, this set of submissions that world-class wrestlers, Greco-Roman wrestlers, top-level world-class wrestlers, and I'm talking about Randy Couture, Dan Severn, Mark Coleman, Brock Lesnar, etc. These world-class level wrestlers develop this methodology of submissions when they began to fight at the UFC back in the mid and late 90s. That is wrestlers jiu-jitsu. I explain myself. When this superb top of the top, best of the best, Greco-Roman wrestlers began to fight at the UFC in the mid 90s and later in the late 90s, early 2000s, these Greco-Roman wrestlers, they were forced to come with a submission game. They were forced to develop a submission game in order to win fights at the UFC. And the reason is, as good as these Greco-Roman wrestlers, top level, world-class wrestlers, as good as they were in Greco-Roman wrestling and as good as they were in takedowns, suplex, in the ability to ride, like they call it, remain on the top, keeping the opponent down with their back pinned to the mat. As good as they were, they did not have a submission game. They did not have submissions because submissions, as we know them, making their opponent tap, making their opponent pass out, making their opponent tap because of pain in the joints, choke, etc. Greco-Roman wrestling did not have and doesn't have that submission incorporated into the sport. Greco-Roman wrestling is a sport of takedown, of throwing, of hip throws, of suplex, and pinning your opponent to the mat, but doesn't have an inherent submission game. So Dan Severn, Mark Coleman, Randy Couture, all these top wrestlers, they began to fight at the UFC, and they realized that they lack submission. So they began on the march, while they were fighting on the UFC, while they were training to fight for the UFC, they began to develop a very unique, very limited in scope, but rich at the same time, very specific methodology of submissions. And that methodology of submission is what I call wrestlers jiu-jitsu. Specifically, these wrestlers, they develop a lot of submissions from the side mount. The side mount was the, let's call it the premier, the basic, the foundational position. The side control was the preferred position for these wrestlers to finish their opponents. Not the full mount, but the side mount. And they develop a specific range of submissions from the side mount. And they specifically they become experts, super experts, subject matter experts in finishing their opponents from the side mount. And this is what happened. These wrestlers, they came with the idea that learning leg locks was too foreign to their sport. They did not learn leg locks. They did not learn knee bars or ankle locks or heel hooks or toe holds, anything like that. That was too strange for them to understand. They did not learn to fight from the guard. They came with the idea, we are super strong, we are world-class wrestlers. It's highly, highly unlikely that anyone will put us with our shoulders back to the mat, that somebody will pin us to the mat. So they did not learn the guard. Remember, the guard is something specifically designed, promoted by Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, by Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Okay, he came with the methodology of fighting from the guard. He was a tiny guy, small person. Usually the people he fought were 20, 30, 40 pounds heavier than him, a lot stronger than him. They were able to put him with his shoulders at the mat, to pin him to the mat. So he came with the idea, okay, I'm not strong enough to get my shoulders off the mat. My opponents usually are going to pin me, are going to put me with my back towards the mat. So I'm going to come with something that I can fight even with my shoulders to the mat, with my back to the mat. And he came with the methodology of the guard that we know today. Not even in Kodokan Judo, not even in the old Judo of Japan, Jigoro Kano. Nobody came with that idea of fighting specifically for a long time with my back to the mat. It was Gracie Jiu-Jitsu that came with that methodology, that developed that strict teaching sense of fighting with the back to the mat. So these wrestlers, back in the 90s, they were very strong guys, super heavy guys, and they came with the idea, okay, we're not going to fight with the back to the mat. Nobody's going to be able to put us with our back to the mat. So we don't need to learn the guard. And it was very foreign to them, to this wrestler, the idea of fighting from the guard, of having their opponents in their guard, and they doing triangles or arm bars from the guard, or kimura from the guard. So they did not learn that. They did not learn leg locks. They did not learn the fighting from the guard. I mean, guard fighting or guard submission, anything like that. So what do they do? They develop this specific methodology of fighting from a position that was very familiar to them. This classic wrestling pin from the side mount, like we call side mount in Jiu-Jitsu, and they became specialists in finishing their opponent from the side mount. Obviously, without the gi, obviously using their strength. They were very powerful, strong guys, heavy guys. Dan Severn was 260. I mean, you can see the famous fight of Dan Severn against Gracie in UFC 4. That was a classic fight. I remember watching that fight almost live back in the day. And Mark Coleman, he was the hammer. He was 255, pure muscle. Guy, super strong. Nobody, I mean, will be able to put Mark Coleman on his back. The same, obviously, with Randy Couture, world-class athlete, world-class wrestler. Brock Lesnar, and we all know Brock Lesnar, one of the strongest person ever at the UFC. He slimmed down to 165, but he used to walk at 300 pounds. Pure muscle, power lifter, bodybuilder. These guys, they developed this style of fighting from the side mount. I mean, and obviously Mark Kerr, another another machine, unbelievable strong, unbelievably athletic person. From the side mount, they developed this short range, It was not a long range, it was a short range, obviously, of submissions, of finishes. But they become experts in those submissions. And again, what I always said, and a lot of martial artists said, to be good in Jiu-Jitsu, you do not need to know more or less 500 techniques. But you need to become an expert, a subject matter expert, a master of 50. If you become a master of 50 techniques, you can become very, very successful in Jiu-Jitsu. You do not need to know more or less 500 techniques. That's something similar of what Bruce Lee said. Do not fear the man who practiced once 10,000 kicks, different kicks. But fear the man who practiced very well 10,000 times the same kick, the same kick technique. Be careful and fear that man. So it's the same. The wrestlers did not develop a huge game of submission. Didn't develop a huge game of different ways to finish their opponent. They did not learn the block. They did not learn the guard. They very seldom went to the full mount, except if they wanted to do some mataleon or something like that, or some punching. But they very, very seldom went to the full mount. But they stayed in the side mount. That was something very familiar to them, to stay in the side mount. And from the side mount, it was not a huge range of submission. It was a limited range of submission, but they became very, very, very good experts on that limited range. And they used their power, their muscle, their body weight. For example, Mark Coleman, Hammer, he, being a wrestler, a Greco-Roman wrestler, when he learned his wrestler's jiu-jitsu, he even came with the Kesa Gatame submission. That was amazing. I never have seen anything like that. A wrestler, not a judo guy, a wrestler, a jiu-jitsu guy, a wrestler came and he began to use Kesa Gatame, the famous headlock scarf position that judo people, Olympic or judo people use as a hold, as a pin. He began to use it as a compression choke. And I was amazed. And he used it several times in the UFC. Mark Coleman. He resurrected in some way his compression choke. That is the Kesa Gatame. This is the real intent of the Kesa Gatame. Today, the judo people, they use it as osaikomi. They use it as a pin. I hold you here for 20 seconds and I win. But that was not the original intent of the Kesa Gatame. The original intent of the Kesa Gatame was to submit people. I cannot breathe. There's a compression choke on my chest. I cannot move my sternum. My neck is to the forward. I cannot breathe. I have to tap. That is the intent of Kesa Gatame, one of my favorite moves that I love ever. And Mark Coleman resurrected. He resurrected that. I mean, and he resurrected, I think it was Oleg Taktarov. Oleg Taktarov, the Sambo guy, I think he used in UFC, I think 5. He used a Kesa Gatame against a Cuban fighter from Miami. He used a Kesa Gatame in that UFC 5, I think. And everybody was, wow, this is an amazing move. And he used the Kesa Gatame as a compression choke. But obviously, Oleg Taktarov was a Sambo master, a judo master. He was a heavy guy, over 200 pounds, and he used it. And then nobody else used Kesa Gatame in the UFC until Mark Coleman, a Greco-Roman wrestler, resurrected again Kesa Gatame as a compression choke. So Mark Coleman used Kesa Gatame as a compression choke, and other wrestlers, Dan Severn, Randy Couture, Mark Kerr, obviously Brock Lesnar, they began to develop this specific range of motions from the side mount, from the Kesa Gatame position to finish their opponent. And I'm talking about Americana, I'm talking about Kimura, I'm talking about the arm triangle, I'm talking about this, what the north and south choke that was famous in some way, somehow. Before we call it the North and South choke, we saw wrestlers using it very effectively as a submission. And the reason why these were so effective and so natural for these wrestlers, uh, when we see them applying the Kesa Gatame choke, the North and South, or the Monson choke, we call it the Monson choke because it was a Monson using this again and again and again in submission game. Again, the reason is they were perfect for their body type. Their body type was perfect for them. Their ability was perfect for them. They were for sure or almost sure they would be on the top. And they were physically strong people. They were monsters. 250 pounds, 255 pounds, pure muscle. Super athletic people, around the couture, 220, 225, pure muscle. And they were able to use this from that limited range of motion and become super experts. And they use their body strength, their weight to their advantage. And they were extremely successful with that limited range. Where my personal story becomes entangled with this wrestler jiu-jitsu, wait, back in the day, I, I stopped competing back in 2001. That was my last competition. But I was developing at this game. I wanted to save energy. My asthma was getting worse day by day, year by year. My asthma was not allowing me to compete or was not allowing me to spar the way I used to back in the day. So I thought, hey, my asthma is not allowing me to fight like I want. My range time of that I am able to breathe is getting smaller. I need to save energy. I don't want to do a lot of body movement. And because I'm used to be an Olympic uh, weightlifter back in the day, then a power lifter later on, I came with the idea. I'm usually normally stronger. Not always, but usually 180, 185, 190 pounds. I'm usually normally stronger than my opponents when I fight either in a competition, either when I fight just friendly fighting in the gym when I roll. So I came with the idea 20 years ago. This wrestler jiu-jitsu works for me, works for my body type, works for my body body ability. Uh, Me being a kind of heavy guy, strong guy, with limited range of air due to my asthma. So I thought this worked for me. I'm gonna use my body strength. I'm gonna use my body weight, and I'm gonna become a specialist in this wrestler's jiu-jitsu. So basically, I developed this methodology of fighting, of finishing fights, of submissions, based having as a foundation this wrestler's jiu-jitsu. And again, it's not that the wrestlers invented submissions like in the 90s. It's not that Randy Couture or Mark Coleman invented these submissions. It's just that they developed this methodology and they became real experts in this short range of submissions from the side mount or from the Kesa Gatame position. For example, why Mark Coleman, the hammer, used the Kesa Gatame compression choke, compression choke that forced the opponent to tap because the body weight on the chest, the neck, cannot breathe, and the person is forced to tap. Why? And why not other Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu people use that more usually or normally? Easy. Helio Gracie was a tiny guy. After Helio Gracie was small, was light, was 135, 140. He did not have the body strength, nor the body power, nor the body weight to do Kesa Gatame compression choke in an effective way. To do a Kesa Gatame compression choke, you need to be heavy. You need to be strong. You need to be able to put your body weight on his chest, to not allow the chest to move, to put all the weight in, to bring the neck closer, to put the person in such an uncomfortable position that prevents breathing on the person. And if you don't have that muscle, if you don't have that body weight, most likely it's not going to work. So that was a submission that Master Helio Gracie, did not incorporate in his methodology of Jiu-Jitsu. He left it alone, back to Kodokan Judo. Okay, Kodokan Judo, you can keep using this, but I'm not going to bring it into my new version, into my new methodology of Judo that we call today Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or Helio Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Now, Helio Gracie taught his students how to escape the Kesa Gatame compression choke as part of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu methodology, escape from it. Actually, Helio Gracie escaped when Kimura tried to do a Kesa Gatame compression choke to him back in his famous fight in Brazil in the 50s. Kimura tried to do a modified position Kesa Gatame compression choke on Helio Gracie, and Helio Gracie skillfully escaped from it. Using his leg, he moved Kimura's head, he was out of it. So, escaping from the Kesa Gatame compression choke is part today of the most Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools. But teaching the submission itself is not part of the methodology, of the script, of the curriculum of most Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools today. And obviously the judo people, the sport judo, Olympic judo, sport judo, abandon the Kesa Gatame compression choke as a submission. They do it today, again, as I said before, they do it today as an osakon, as a pin only. But they do not intend for the opponent to tap because of the compression choke, the lack of air, the lack of the inability to breathe of their opponent. Mark Coleman, on the other hand, super strong guy, super athletic guy, a monster 255 in his peak, he was able to use the Kesa Gatame compression choke. So again, they use, out of the big menu, all you can eat menu of submissions in Jiu-Jitsu, they pick and choose those submissions that were good for their body type, for their Greco-Roman abilities, for their strength. That was their ability to ride, their ability to stay on the top, their ability to pin their opponents to the ground, side mount, and their strength, their athleticism, their great muscle, their great weight, body weight. So that's why they developed this specific range. And I saw in this wrestler jiu-jitsu a good option for me. That's why during years and years, I very seldom went to the full mount position to finish a fight. I feel more comfortable finishing the fight using wrestler's jiu-jitsu. I feel more comfortable finishing the fight from the side mount. That's for many years. Even before I retired back in 2001, when I retired from competition, I began to finishing the fight from the side mount. I began to incorporate the modified Kesa Gatame and the full Kesa Gatame, that is a lot stronger, to finish the fights from there. And I began to develop this wrestler's jiu-jitsu methodology, finishing the fight from the side mount. I very seldom or almost never used to go to the knee on the belly or to the full mount. I did not care. I mean, me being a Valente brother mentality, I never care about the the point system in the sport jiu-jitsu, or the 3 points here and 2 points there and the 4 points there. I really don't care. I was fighting for submission only. And the side mount offered to me, to my body type, the best option for submission. So what I recommend for all of you to get, I'm giving some demonstrations of wrestlers jiu-jitsu, and you can see them, the demonstrations here. Some of the basic wrestlers jiu-jitsu methodology of submissions from the side mount, and occasionally from the mount, but mostly, occasionally from the full mount, but mostly from the side mount. You can see them, but also I recommend to the people, go to YouTube. Google the old fights. Go to YouTube and search for the old fights of these great wrestlers. And I'm talking about, again, Dan Severn, Mark Coleman and his great Kesa Gatame compression show, Mark Kerr, Randy Couture, Brock Lesnar. You will see how the wrestler's jiu-jitsu really works. It's, I'm not telling you abandon jiu-jitsu. I mean, if you're a jiu-jitsu person, you're a jiu-jitsu person. You have to be well-rounded. You need to know submission from the full mount. You need to know the leg locks. And I think, actually, in my opinion, I think the leg locks are completely underused in the sport tournament jiu-jitsu game. But that's another subject. That's my personal opinion. But you need to be well-rounded. You need to learn from the guard, obviously, how to fight from the guard when you have your opponent in your guard. You have to be well-rounded. But again, this wrestler jiu-jitsu offer option for people who have these body characteristics, these body strengths and weaknesses, who might like to finish the fight from the side mount as the primary position. Go to YouTube, look for these UFC fights in the 90s and early 2000s, and you will see what I mean. You will see Mark Coleman, Dan Severn, Randy Couture, Mark Kerr, Brock Lesnar, and others. There were many other wrestlers too that began to jump into the UFC back in the old days. And you will see the submissions that they came, the submission methodology. It's a short range of jiu-jitsu, but they became super experts, super masters, let's call it that way, in that specific range of submission. It's something that I use and I incorporated in my own game back in the day. I hope you like it. Please subscribe. If you more jiu-jitsu videos are coming. I try to interpol geopolitics on my passion, that is Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So like it and subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much. This is Aledo from Miami.